Greetings, fellow detectives. Wizard Kitten here, bringing you a new build in my series Building Nancy Drew in The Sims 4. Today I am bringing you part 2 of the highly anticipated Blackmoor Manor. Part 1 was released on the last Wizard Kitten Wednesday, and part 1 included the entire exterior of the build as well as all of the landscaping. And that was a pretty long video. This one's going to be even longer because we are now doing the interior of Blackmoor Manor. And holy cannoli, is Blackmoor Manor big and detailed. It took me quite a while to do all of the interior spaces for this massive build, but I have officially done it. I have finally gotten Blackmoor Manor to be a completed build in The Sims 4, and so today you get to see all of the interior rooms. I hope that you enjoy it. Please let me know in the comments section what you think about how this build turned out, and I'll be sure to link part 1 if you haven't gotten a chance to see that already. But we are starting off in Brigittes' room, in the room that Nancy stays in the game. And as usual, my biggest qualm with doing these recreations is that The Sims 4 does not have a whole ton of really beautiful architectural details, nor does The Sims 4 have a lot of really ornate walls that look like they have a lot of architectural details. So one kind of iconic thing about this room is that it does have these really dark cobalt blue walls, and the walls themselves are almost tile in appearance, and they're probably brick. It's more likely that it's brick. But finding a wall that was the correct color versus a wall that was the correct texture was darn near impossible. So right now we have this cobalt blue, which is the right color, but not at all the right texture. And eventually I'm going to make a change. I start using a lot of Get Famous wallpaper, mostly because it gives us kind of a really cool marble texture, and I wanted Blackmoor Manor obviously to feel very grand. That was the idea. So eventually I will change out the wallpaper, and I do like the wallpaper that I go with better, and I use the same wallpaper in pretty much all of the bedrooms and rooms on the second level here, so there's a little bit of continuity there as well. Now, when I was working on this room, I tried to find as many of the objects that are in the game as possible and find a approximation for them in The Sims. So for example, I just put this future cube here on this chair in the corner to kind of symbolize the puzzle box, the astronomy puzzle box that Nancy has to open that sits on that chair. So there's a couple fun little things like that in some of these rooms. It is also very difficult to decorate these rooms according to the style from the Nancy Drew games, because in the Nancy Drew games, it's all art that is designed to kind of go nicely together with matching wood tones and matching themes for the artwork and the decorations. Not so in The Sims 4. So it's a little bit more eclectic looking in this room and pretty much all of the rooms. So bear with me there. I did actually get to use this Realm of Magic bed in pretty much every room. I finally had a build where this bed actually made sense because it's a beautiful bed. Like, look at it, it's stunning. It looks so pretty. But in what world is that bed going to naturally fit into a Sims room? Not many. So it was nice to get a chance to use a lot of the really grand items that I don't get a chance to use very often. I got to use my favorite paranormal curtains quite a bit. These curtains in this room in this rich, like, ruby burgundy color. It's like my favorite. Right here, I am building a window seat. We do have some window seat type windows in the game, but it would have completely ruined the exterior of the build in terms of how just like balanced and symmetrical the outside of it looked. So I didn't want to change the windows at all. And so what I decided to do in both Nancy's room and Jane's room, because they both have these window seats, is to just try and make like a faux built-in window seat using these cushions from, I believe, City Living, and then these bookshelves from Eco Lifestyle. So it looks a little bit silly, but I think it at least gets the idea across that this is the window seat where Nancy would find the hidden compartment that she has to interact with in the game. There is also a microphone sitting over there that is supposed to symbolize the telescope. We do have an observatory in the game. We do technically have a telescope, but it's huge, and it would not fit in Brigitte's room. It would just be way too massive. So the microphone is to symbolize that. You have to use your imagination a little bit with this build. Now, working on the hallways was a challenge and a half. I really wanted to add some sort of architectural detail to the hallways, so what I decided to do was break them up and put these arches in, because in the game, we do have these similar archways where it looks like they're kind of built into the wall and the hallway is broken up a little bit. It's more open. They aren't closed off rooms. It's just one continuous hallway with these built-in arches and just curved stone everywhere. But this was about the best I could do in The Sims. The Sims 4 is based on a grid system, so naturally curves are not going to be very common. Minette would be aghast. And then this marble wallpaper, as I mentioned earlier, is from Get Famous, and this is the closest thing I could find in the game that matched up with the actual style of Blackmoor Manor, in that it was grand enough, the color was okay, because the side of the wall that connects to the grand entrance there is supposed to have these really pretty, basically like tapestried walls, where the walls themselves are works of art, but we don't have anything like that. Like, I looked for some cool mural wallpaper and we just don't have any. And I really wish, honestly, that a lot of the base game wallpapers would have been updated for The Sims 4 by this point, because all of the base game ones we have come in like a pastel blue, a pastel pink, a pastel green, and then like a brown. And those are the only ones that have kind of like the detailing on the top and bottom of the walls, or maybe a wood detailing on half of the wall, or a stone detailing on half of the wall. Those are the only ones that have that, but the colors do not work at all with Blackmoor Manor. I mean, pastels are not the look for this very creepy English manor with a werewolf on the loose. Sorry, pastels just aren't going to do it. We aren't going for the spring collection here. We're going very dark academia. Look, gargoyles. Do you think these gargoyles are going to look nice with a pastel pink Tudor wall Sims 4? No, I don't think so either. So I did the best that I could. I'm ranting a little bit because, yes, it was a little bit frustrating, because I like to try and get these builds as close as possible to the originals, but sometimes we just can't. I did build this in real time for the patrons over at Mystique Manor, the senior detective patrons, for their exclusive content for the month of January. So they have already gotten to see this, and I mentioned while I was doing this that like finding a Lulu homage was kind of difficult. I initially was going to like very cheekily put in a neon parrot light, because that's the only parrot object we have in the game. But no, I didn't do that. I ended up putting in a little critter from My First Pet Stuff. It's called a Bubbleless, and it is a void critter, which is basically like a Pokemon in the Sims 4 universe, and I enjoy it. So there is a random Bubbleless in the hallway, and it is supposed to symbolize Lulu. And you just noticed that I changed out the wallpaper in Brigittes' room, and I then decided to use this wallpaper in every single bedroom. We are now working on Linda's bedroom, which would have been Linda and Hugh's bedroom. I decided to change the orientation of the room a little bit because I didn't want the bed to be up against the windows, but I also didn't want to get rid of the windows. So I just decided to alter the orientation of the room so that the bed was on the other side. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter because I already had to make so many changes to the second floor plan that I think a few more aren't going to damage anything. At this point, it's sort of just a homage to Blackmoor Manor in some points and sometimes, but you know, I'm still happy with how it turned out. I might not sound as happy, but it did end up working out. I did enjoy putting in this like creepy statue and making Linda's room just kind of as creepy as possible. It's just very dark. There's no lights. All the furniture is really dark. She has the blackout curtains over all of the windows, so there's no natural light coming in. This creepy candelabra that looks like Lumiere, but is not Lumiere because it's not joyful. It was just kind of fun to make this a very creepy room. I did also end up using a lot of vampires in this build. I used a lot of the paranormal stuff pack kind of art and decorations. There was quite a bit of that. There's a fair amount of base game, a fair amount of Get Famous, and a fair amount of Realm of Magic as well. So now this is going to be Jane's room, and Jane's room is actually like very red and warm in comparison to some of the other rooms, which is kind of fun, kind of interesting, and I feel like her room was able to be pretty similar to what it looks like in the game. I mean, we even have the trunk of games that she incessantly asks us to play with her, so there you go. We're already halfway there if we have that trunk of games. And then I just tried to use the beds and the bedding, all the decorations that were basically just red. It's a lot of red and gold, just warm colors in general. And it's kind of hard to tell, like, if Blackmoor Manor is a majority warm color type build or a majority cold color type build, because I feel like it kind of bounces between the two almost. It's very interesting. So we're, of course, doing this built-in window seat here again, just like we had in Nancy's room, because Jane has one as well, with the books that are meant to symbolize the Penvillin family tree and the monster book that Jane has in there. I also tried to match up the artwork as close as possible. Sometimes there are extra windows in this build that don't exist in the game, and I just tried to choose curtains that made sense for the room, that kind of worked with the color scheme. Again, everything is a little bit eclectic. Everything fits together and yet doesn't quite fit together, which probably makes sense for a manor that's been around for a really long time. It would make sense that there's been kind of like a random collection of furniture, just depending on who was living there at the time, what their style was, and what changes they decided to make, especially for the Penvillin family. That is my favorite part of Blackmoor Manor, is that we get to dive into the very specific history of this one very specific British family and learn about each of the members of the family and how the manor and the puzzle changed through the generations. I thought that was really cool. I really enjoyed that idea. That zombie picture is supposed to symbolize Brady Armstrong, by the way. No shade, Brady. You don't look like a zombie, but we don't have that many cute boy posters in The Sims 4, so there you go. You look like a zombie. But anyway, I really like just like finding all of the elements of their puzzle, and I think it would be so cool if that were like a family tradition that I had, or that like anyone had, anyone that I knew, where every generation their family passed something down, but in order to find it, you had to solve this ever-increasing labyrinth of puzzles. I just love that idea. I think that's very neat. Over on this side table here, the stereo is supposed to represent the microwave, and the fruit bowl is supposed to represent the ingredients that you can use to make snacks for Lulu. I think it's kind of annoying, but you can only place microwaves on top of counters in The Sims 4. You can't put microwaves on any other surface except mini fridges. So I didn't want to put counters in here because that wouldn't have looked quite right. I wanted to put more of the end table, and that therefore I could not put a microwave in order to perfectly represent the snacks that we make for Lulu. Do you guys make a lot of snacks for Lulu when you play this game? I did when I played it like the first time, because I kind of thought you had to. And of course, when I played for the first time, I didn't know the answer to all of Lulu's riddles when you find the secret passageway. So I definitely had to make more treats for Lulu, but now that I know basically all the answers to the riddles, I don't think I've made treats for Lulu in years, even though I've played this game multiple times. Yeah, let me know. Do you make treats for Lulu? This is honestly my favorite room in the entirety of Blackmoor Manor, and it's not even a room that we get to see, but I decided to make this a fancy billiards room. We do not have a billiards table in The Sims 4, but I imagined, like, if you've ever watched Downton Abbey or any sort of like fancy historical drama or romance or what have you, very often in these grand homes, it was common to have like a gathering space for men and a gathering space for women after the large dinners. And so this would have been kind of like the traditional gathering space for men. Obviously, now that Blackmoor Manor is more modern and hopefully has progressed past that, anyone can come enjoy time in this billiards room. But I just really like how the color scheme came together in there. I was able to put it together super quickly. It made me very happy. So that was a good time coming into that billiards room. It's my favorite room in the whole house. And now we are working on the bathrooms. Blackmoor Manor ends up having 3 bathrooms, all on the top level. There's this one main bathroom that would be accessible for Nancy's room and Jane's room. Linda's room has its own ensuite, and then Mrs. Drake's room has its own ensuite as well. I did think about making more bedrooms rather than more like social gathering spaces, because we kind of have to think about, like, okay, Nigel Mukherjee is visiting. Ethel Bossany essentially lives at Blackmoor Manor. Does she have her own room? Does Nigel have a guest room? How does that work? What's the deal there? I eventually decided to not make extra bedrooms, with the reasoning that I don't think Nigel would be allowed to stay at Blackmoor Manor. I don't think they would want him poking around at night. I don't think he's allowed to. He like works there, but I don't think they would let him sleep there. So Nigel probably gets a hotel at like a pub up the road or something in the local village. And Ethel, I think it's very possible that she could have a room at Blackmoor Manor, but I kind of thought that she would maybe have there would be like a servant's house that would be not too far away from Blackmoor Manor, where a lot of the kind of more high-level servants would stay. So like the lady's maid, the high-level lady's maids, the butler, the tutor, which basically the governess that Ethel is, I think mostly would stay in kind of like that servant's house. So that's sort of what I went with. If you wanted to change any one of the extra social gathering spaces into a bedroom for Ethel, I'm sure she wouldn't mind. I think she probably likes spending a lot of her time at Blackmoor Manor. This is one of my other favorite rooms in the house. This is the bedroom that I decided to make for Mrs. Drake, and it's the largest bedroom by far. And I mean, normally kind of like the main owner of the house would have the main bedroom, so it would maybe make more sense for Hugh and Linda to have this bedroom, but I kind of think that they gave Mrs. Drake this room because she has lived in the house the longest. She kind of has seniority. She has lived at the house more than Hugh because he's gone for his job quite a lot. So I think it probably made sense for them to allow Mrs. Drake to have this large room. And it's a little bit more colorful than I imagined and a little bit more light than I imagined giving Mrs. Drake initially. But when I think about it, I mean, she spends all of her time in the sunniest room of the manor. She spends all of her time in the conservatory, and she would want her bedroom to have as many really nice plants as it could as well. So I actually kind of like the idea that Mrs. Drake is just very serious and prim and proper and does not seem like a very light, fun person. But then you go to her bedroom and it's very, very light, kind of feminine. It has all these nice little elements to it as well. And I also went with the kind of like storyline that she secretly is actually really into like seances and palm reading. I even gave her a seance table, just like a full-on one. Because in the game, we see her give Linda a medallion to try and like chase away spirits. So I think she at least dabbles in it a little bit, and I kind of like the idea of her just like secretly having this seance table in her room, because I don't think anyone goes into her room. I don't think Jane would ever go in there. I don't think Hugh would ever go in there. They would consider it like very improper and like a violation of her space. So she just has her sneaky little seance table. It's her hobby. She needs things to do besides just take care of her plants. So she takes care of her plants, and then she, in the evenings, comes up here. She can have some tea. She has a nice little sitting area for her tea, and then she does a little seance with her little seance table. I need more excuses to use that table too, because it's really pretty, and I love the chairs, and I just love the items in the paranormal stuff pack quite a bit. It's a pack that I want to play with a little bit more, which is actually what I've been doing with The Sims 4 recently. I've been on quite a Sims 4 gameplay kick, and what I've been doing is a randomized packs challenge. I don't know if I've mentioned this on the channel before, but it's super fun. I highly recommend it if you've never tried it before. But if you own like all of the Sims 4 packs or a good chunk of the packs, oftentimes it can feel like you aren't really getting to experience some of the packs because they all start to blend together, or maybe there's one that you play all the time and you use another one like very sparingly, and you kind of feel like you're missing out on that experience. This challenge is a really great way to get yourself to use all of the packs in different ways. So I basically randomized all the expansion packs and all the game packs in one list, and then all of the stuff packs in another list, and each generation of the legacy has to have one expansion or game pack, and that's the main gameplay element. And then they also have to incorporate 2 randomized stuff packs. So for example, my first generation, I spun for Dine Out, so she owned her own restaurant, and then I also had fitness stuff and tiny living. So she lived in a tiny house her whole life, and she just enjoyed rock climbing for fun, for fun on the side was her little hobby. She was just a rock climber. So it's been really fun. It gets me to use other packs that I haven't used before. I'm currently like transitioning from Generation 2, which was Island Living, Cool Kitchen, and Kids Room stuff, into Generation 3, which is Discover University, My First Pet stuff, and Spooky stuff, which is going to be kind of fun. I'm going to have the heir be like slightly gothic because she likes spooky stuff, and she's just going to be really obsessed with Halloween. That's going to be her favorite holiday. She always has to have a little rodent pet. She currently has a little hedgehog, and then she's going to go to university and become a robotics expert. So yeah, that's what I'm doing with my free time. I'll briefly talk about the great entrance here, the grand entrance. I was really disappointed, honestly, with how the grand entrance turned out. I did my best. I think I got the colors to work out okay eventually. It does not really look like the grand entrance in the game, if you ask me. Like, if I had to say if I did a good job on the Great Hall, I would probably say that I didn't, and that it definitely could have been better. But this was about all I could think to do in terms of like just what we had for wallpapers and floorings and stuff. I did end up putting all of these seals on the pillars, which I think helped because that got across the idea that like the pillars were something kind of special. There's the iconic gargoyle in there. There's the big central kind of tile work. The colors are not right. The colors do not fully work. And all of the what do you call them? The coats of arms, all of them are repetitive. They're all the same, but I did what I could. I feel like this is probably the best I could have done at the time, and so I guess I'm happy for it for that reason. But yeah. So basically I've been playing my Sims gameplay challenge in my free time. I've also been doing a lot of snowshoeing because we've been getting enough snow where I could actually get out and go snowshoeing, and I'm having the best time with that. I really enjoy snowshoeing. It's just I'm realizing more and more how important it is for me to get outside and either go hiking or go snowshoeing, or just do some sort of prolonged outdoor activity where I can get some sunlight and move my body. It's becoming increasingly clear to me how important that is for my mental well-being. So I hope to continue doing a lot of snowshoeing and various other, excuse me, I'm going to take a sip of water real quick. Pardon me, got a little frog in my throat there. Various other winter activities. I do want to get out and go skiing a little bit. I don't have a season pass. I haven't gotten a season pass for downhill skiing. in the longest time, like a very, very long time. But I love skiing. It's more that I just kind of like forget, and then it ends up being too late to kind of make it worth it, because passes can be really expensive. But I really would like to go skiing. I was initially going to go skiing this Christmas, but we decided to not travel this Christmas and just do Christmas home. So it was very low key, but I didn't get to go skiing in the mountains like I was kind of hoping. But that's okay. We do what must be done. We do what works. And yeah, it was a nice low key Christmas, very relaxing. I got to see my family, got to see Mr. Wizard Kitten's family. I got to see my grandma, which was really nice. And yeah, do a lot of snowshoeing and play a lot of Sims. That's basically been my winter break. And it's low-key, but sometimes that's nice. Sometimes it's good to be low-key. For those of you that were also on a break or had a vacation from work, how was it? What did you get up to? What hobbies are you exploring lately? What's bringing you joy lately? I would love to just check in and hear from all of you what's new in your lives. What are you up to? So now we're working on, this is probably my second favorite room in the entire manor, the conservatory. I really like this room in the game too. It's a very sensory room for me. Like, just think about looking at all the green plants and then hearing Nancy walking down the steps. That like clink, clink, clink noise that she makes when she goes down the steps is totally seared into my brain. It makes me so happy every time I hear it. So bringing this little conservatory to life was a lot of fun. I basically did not try to match any of the plants. I just went crazy with plants. I did try to match the frog statue, and I did try to match this bench and the little decorations that are next to the bench, because Nancy interacts with those. The floor plan is definitely much smaller, but I think the overall idea still works, because I use these dividers to kind of be like, okay, this is like the first area that Nancy comes into, and then she walks around the corner to the area where Mrs. Drake has kind of her workstation. So I just filled this room with plants. It's got a lot of plants. And I got to use some new ones that I haven't really gotten to use before from like the new plant kit. I got to just fill the room with some of my favorite plants. And very soon here, I left it in because I think it's kind of funny. I will go about the process of getting in the carnivorous plant that can eat Nancy by getting a cow plant. So prepare for that, because I was very proud of it and how it actually worked. I was really, really pleased. I was initially going to put this little baby cow plant and then size it up. And then I was going to try and find another carnivorous plant, but we just don't have any. So what I did instead was use this Lamazon mod from Ravisheen. Check it out, it's amazing, super helpful. And then I went into the system and found a cowberry, and then I had Clara Bjornsson, who is the Sims who are currently living here, is the Bjornsson's family. I had her go plant a little cow plant, and when we age it up using a couple of cheats, I put it in the conservatory to symbolize the giant plant that eats Nancy. Is this not perfect? Look at him! It makes me so happy. That's definitely one of the most memorable second chances in the Nancy Drew series. I should really do a video of my favorite second chances in the whole series, because that one has to be included. Nancy getting eaten by a giant carnivorous plant is hilarious and so unexpected. It makes me happy every time. So there we are. I do end up putting the little baby cow plant in the jar over on the side to symbolize the little baby carnivorous plant that tries to bite Nancy when she tries to get the piece of paper that Mrs. Drake leaves behind. So I definitely wanted to put that in there as well. And I just use basically all of the beautiful decorative tables that have plants on them to fill in this area. So Mrs. Drake's workstation is full of these beautiful tables, full of beautiful plants, full of everything. And I'm really happy with how this room turned out. I think it looks like the conservatory, and at the very least, it has the vibe of the conservatory. So, yes, very pleased. Having the cow plant is my favorite part. Definitely most excited about that cow plant. So next we're moving on to probably the library. Every time I have a long pause, I'm searching through my walkthroughs to try and find the different rooms in the game that we actually see. And I wanted to try and do those first because those are harder. It's more difficult to find the builds that or do the builds that have a lot of spaces that we see visually in the game, because then I have to try and match them. Whereas when I can do rooms that we don't see in the game, I can just try to do the style of Blackmoor Manor, and that works a lot easier for me because then I can just kind of do colors that work, choose objects that I feel like work without feeling so restrained by trying to match them as well. So I try to get these rooms out of the way first, these ones that are a little bit more difficult. Because even then, like, this is about as close as I could get to the library, and even then, I don't think it looks as similar to the library as I kind of wish it would. It has all the same elements. It's got the tapestries, it's got the books everywhere. I use these big curtains to kind of fill in the window space. Part of the issue is that there are more windows than the library has. In fact, I don't think the library has any windows, but Blackmoor Manor does, so there you are. We have this desk for Nigel with Nigel's laptop, where you can read his memoirs. And I do eventually put the statue here as well. I think it's like a thinker-inspired statue from the Romantic Garden stuff pack, sitting there staring at Nigel, which I think is really funny. I do love that moment in the game when Nancy can move the statue and Nigel freaks out. Oh! His scream is so funny. Oh, it just fills me with joy. But yeah, lined the rooms with all of these bookshelves from Discover University. Got a lot of use, in fact, out of these bookshelves from Discover University. And then I put this desk over here that would symbolize Alan's desk, and I filled it in with green lights, which I was super happy about. I was annoyed at first when I had to kind of like jump out of the game and then go into live mode because the family that was living here was running out of money. But I'm actually glad then because I was able to change these lights to green just like they are in the game, which is actually kind of like a fun foreshadowing element to what Nancy can find later in the game too, I think. I think that works out really nicely. So that's the library. It's pretty bland, I guess. That's not quite the right word. Bland is not the right word, but empty, maybe? Empty is maybe the right word. But that's literally, if you look at the game, that's all there is in there is books. They just all happen to look the same in The Sims 4 because I had to use the same bookshelf over and over again, and there's no variation in the books, so we do what we can. The dining room, I'm pretty happy with how the dining room turned out. I decided to keep using these vampire floor tiles, to keep using the kinds of rugs that were really grand and look like these big Turkish rugs. I put a bar in here. I put a couple of like dish holding shelves. We have a couple of them. I was initially going to use this one, but the slots on it are horrible. Like, they're way in the corner. There's not one in the middle. I don't understand the slots on this object at all. It's from Jungle Adventure, and it's kind of a cool object, but yeesh. It's very difficult, very complicated. I also kind of imagined, because there's a lot of pirate and ship type art in this room, which seems very out of character for Blackmoor Manor, but I know that one of the Penvillins did sail quite a bit, and so I imagined that these were commissioned by him. They were commissioned by that Penvillin, and they are kept in the dining room. Just like other rooms in Blackmoor Manor have different pieces of art commissioned by different Penvillins, I imagined that that was him. We just happen to not get to see it in the game, but it exists. And then here is kind of a fun room. I decided to do a ballroom. So this is another room that I suppose you could turn into a bedroom if you wanted to, although it does feel kind of strange to have bedrooms on the first level of a really fancy manor. It does seem a little bit strange, but yeah, that's okay. So in this room, we're going to have a big fancy ballroom with a big dance floor in the middle. We have the grand piano, and then there's a bar in here. It's a pretty empty room, but again, I mean, that kind of makes sense because you would imagine a bunch of very fancily dressed people doing a waltz or some other sort of fancy dance around this space. And I used these beautiful purple and blue chairs from the Paranormal Stuff Pack, just as little sitting areas around the edges of the space, so the Sims would have some room to sit. But yeah, this would be a fun place. Honestly, this build would be a great build for a Sim who likes to entertain, Sims that like to throw parties, because you could have a dance party, you could have a dinner party, you could have a garden party, you could have all sorts of parties. You could literally do anything at Blackmoor Manor. You have everything you need. Oftentimes when I throw my Sims parties, like, I usually don't put bars in my Sims houses. Very rarely do I do that. Usually because there's just not space or it doesn't fit their character or something. But this build, I think, has 3. It has 2, 3? It at least has 2, and then it has the little globes where you can get, like, the fancy versions of stuff. So, yeah, very neat. This would be a great house for entertaining, which my Sims, again, usually don't do, but if your Sims do, then voila, they could have fun here. So like I mentioned earlier, I had the room upstairs as the billiards room, so that would be traditionally the room where the men would congregate after dinner and hang out and talk business and politics, and traditionally this would be the room where the women would go and have tea, have some more drinks, chat. This would also be like a daytime sitting room where people would come and have tea. If guests were visiting during the day, this is where they would come. And I kind of divided it up into 2 sides. There's like the area that's specifically for sitting and socializing, and then there's the area, the other half, that is specifically for more like skills. So I put this card table over in the corner. It currently has Don't Wake the Llama on it, but it is also supposed to be a card table. So like the ladies could play bridge over there. And then I put the teapot in the middle to kind of symbolize, okay, this is where we're going to have tea. It would be even better if we had a separate kettle, but we don't, so we'll make it work. I really wanted to use this paranormal cabinet, but none of the colors worked in the space. It was very tragic, very sad. I wanted to have like a tea cabinet, basically, like a little storage area. Eventually, just decided to fill in the space with some more bookshelves, because that's what bookshelves are great for in The Sims 4. Beyond holding your Sims books, they're also a great way to use up empty space. I also got so much use out of this tapestry object from Vampires. I wish I could have used the movie Hangout tapestry as well, but it's just very brightly colored, whereas this one is definitely more the dark academia tones that we're going for. Less boho, more dark academia. And so yes, this side is the activity side. So I put the grand piano, I put an art easel, and then I put a knitting basket and an embroidery basket. So traditionally, lady-friendly activities. And again, I think the Pedvelin family has hopefully progressed beyond that kind of thing, but traditionally, I think these rooms, that's how they would be structured. And then another one of the little globe bars for your Sims drinking pleasure. Some fancy artwork, all sorts of good stuff. There is also a lot of paintings that get repeated, but that's just sort of how things have to go. In these giant recreations, it had to happen in Wickford Castle too. When you have so much wall space and only so much traditional art, you repeat paintings. You try to do it as little as possible, but it still happens. I also imagine that was a picture of one of the Penvelins, maybe one of the ones who wasn't an heir, but he had a dog and was a sailor. And now we are working on the famed Penvelin kitchen, or the fabled Penvelin kitchen. We fabled because we don't get to see it in the game, although there is a sign on the door saying like, oh, the kitchen is supposed to be here, but Jane burned it down in an experiment. So here it is. This is the famed Penvelin kitchen. I decided to give it like all new appliances with the like joke idea that Jane ruined all the appliances before, so they had to buy all new ones. So they're all stainless steel, shiny, very expensive, very, very fancy. And it's a fully decked out kitchen. I mean, there's not a whole lot of like detail. It doesn't feel very cozy or lived in, but I don't think it would. I think it would purposefully be kept very clean, very tidy, and it would be purely just used for making very fancy meals. I wonder if the Penvelins just like hire a chef for when they need a chef. Like maybe they don't have a live-in cook, but they hire somebody when they have maybe a big event or a big party or lots of people coming over. That would actually make sense. Like, they make their own breakfast, usually they have their own lunches and stuff, but they might have somebody come in to do really fancy dinners and whatnot for entertaining. We have a big fancy island, we have a tea kettle, we have a coffee pot, just enough decorations to make it look like it was used. But yeah, happy with how the kitchen came out. Again, you'll have to let me know what you think about these spaces and if they end up looking like Blackmoor Manor and how you imagined it. This is like a butler's pantry, and just kind of like an all-purpose room with all the cleaning supplies, the laundry, the vacuum, some storage, basically just an all-purpose room. But wow, we are coming up on the screenshots here, so please let me know in the comments down below what you think about this build. Are you happy with the furnishing? Do you think it looks like Blackmoor Manor? Just tell me all your thoughts. What are you thinking? Do you like the color scheme? Do you like how it turned out? Does it look close enough? All that good stuff. Please feel free to follow the channel socials, all linked in the description box down below. And as always, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more Nancy Drew and Sims 4 content. Thank you so much for watching, fellow detectives. I will see you soon.